So we'll play with some suspension. So you said you have 2 tokens right now or 3?
I think 2 front.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So you're at 160, so we can start with 2. What I want to do is I want to set it up where you'll always be able to get that last ½ inch of travel. You just need to do something awful enough. But what you'll notice is that last ½ inch of travel, or even 3/4 inch travel, I want you to be your oh crap travel.
Yeah.
Because if your front end bottoms out and stays, you keep going. If your shock bottoms out and stays, the bike will keep going, right? Yeah. So how much high speed are you running right now? So I see none, so no high speed. 1, 2, 3, and only 2 clicks of low speeds. Okay. So I want to bounce around on your bike real fast, just kind of feel what it looks, see what it feels like. You're right, man. The weight bias is super.
It's super back.
Yeah, like that.
It's super easy to bring up.
That's really easy, like
but
uncanny easy to do. And you were running, you said 80 psi.
Yep.
And do you have your shock pump with you or no?
I do.
Let's do yours, because my shock pump and your shock pump might not be the same shock. So the air fills up the chamber with the pump in. It's only going to be a couple of psi. So what I'll do is I'll go back up to what you said, which was 80. And I would like you to try more low-speed compression than this.
Okay.
Then you add this. I am a firm believer in having enough spring to hold you up, but dynamically, there's not a lot of support past that. We move at a low velocity. So the fork is moving at a low velocity. That oil flow is going to be restricted with low-speed compression. So pedaling, pumping, jumping, cornering, braking, those are all our body mass moving at a low velocity. This is going to make the bike ride higher in the travel. So the high-speed compression is going to make the fork ride higher at a high velocity hit. It's going to make the bike theoretically faster through stuff, but that energy has to go somewhere. It's going to go either laterally or into you. So if you are super boss, you can technically hold on to more high speed. I don't like my bike to feel as rough as it did once, so I'm only running 1 to 2 clicks of this. But the old damper, there was more high speed, so you couldn't run as much of it. So rebound wise is very fast. What I'm noticing is the back of your bike, the rebound feels really slow, and then you have a lot of compression. So I looked up your bike and looked up what the spring curve is on this bike, and your bike is a very rear bias because of the mullet design.
Yeah.
But I noticed it doesn't want to sit in that back travel, and then more importantly, if I hit multiple bumps, the fork doesn't want to come back. So you see how slow that's returning? So if I load into this bike 3 times, 1, 2, it doesn't want to come back after the second hit. So it will eventually, it can come back at a high velocity, but at a low velocity doesn't want to come back. So by bump 3, you have no rear shock, which means your wheels either kind of come up or go laterally. So I want to speed you up a little bit. So now it actually comes back. So you see at a low velocity, there's still plenty of low speed damping. It's going to give you your traction, it's going to give you your grip. But at a high velocity, it actually comes back now, which means you're not going to pack up. So the funny thing is, a slow rebound, people think keeps us from getting bucked forward. But if the fork can't, if the shock can't recover by bump 2, it's actually going to bump you forward. So now that this is faster, where's it going to put way more weight?
In front.
So dynamically, your bike was riding ultra mullet, but it was also making you feel like your fork was too firm. So if you had put extra compression on while this was slow, it wouldn't have felt good. If the back end's staying and the front end doesn't stay, the bike feels uneven. So now it's going to actually feel softer because the back wheel is going to be pushing in your fork. So now you need more damping to overcome that. So we got to get that teeter-totter to be flat while you're on it. Versus the teeter-totter was so rear bias that it wanted to make the bike push. There's always symptoms and causes, but many times people get a symptom confused with a different cause, right? Also, I want to try you. You can theoretically run a little more low speed because your bike is a mullet, but I also want you to be able to get into that travel easily because you and I are both not tall or heavy.
Yeah.
So on a flat trail, or if you don't want all this bike, add some low speed compression and it will make the bike slower to get into sag and slower to compress with force, which makes more weight stay front. You could add low speed compression as needed to put pressure here, which is going to keep more centered on the bike. Versus if this is open, the bias is rear, But when we're going downhill, the bias is always forward. So too much rear compression is going to make it harder to get back into sag. So I'm going to add, we're going to oscillate on the bike and see how it feels. And what rear pressure was it you were running?
Like 175 or something. There's just me in trial and error.
Okay.
I'm running 25% sag in the back.
Okay.
With
So if I stand on this bike and I load on it, load into the pedals only, not my hands, but I'm going to engage my posterior, and if I load into the bike, I want the bike to be even. So at a low speed, it's even, and at a high speed, it's even. Toe and I are similar enough weights, it's pretty easy for me to mimic what his bike's going to do. If he was heavier than me, I just add some more inertia to make the bike feel, to make myself weigh more. But if you notice, if I go like this and come up, the bike bounces me. But if I stay, the bike comes back up. It doesn't even leave the ground. So I personally like my bike to be faster than this. But that doesn't mean that everyone's bike should be faster than this. So, but if I push on it fast, it comes right back. It's ready to come again. It's ready for bump number 2. I'm going to add a bunch of velocity into that back shock to see what it feels like. So I can get bottom, but I can't feel it hard. Have you felt it hit hard yet? Or
like
are you just
once.
getting full travel?
I'm getting full travel a
But
lot.
you're not feeling it.
Nah.
Okay. I would say that you can add one more token if you want, but you feeling it bottom when you do something mega, as long as it doesn't feel like you got punched in the teeth, that's fine. If you felt it bottom and you think you landed well and something was mega, then I would say you probably want something more progressive. Fork travel, how much have you gotten to? Just to here at the debonair, or have you gotten all the way up?
I've gotten all the way up when I really fuck up.
Now that we've added way more low-speed compression, theoretically you're going to have a lot more spring support throughout the travel. So our body moves fast, then it starts moving slower. So as the fork slows down, the low-speed compression is going to affect bottom out. If the fork's moving fast, that's the high-speed compression. So if I put weight into this, if I slam into your fork, I can get almost all the travel, but I don't feel it bottom. So it's pushing back at me pretty hard. And I would say that's that extra token. So if we took that token out, then we'd be right up to about here. So I was trying to vector all my weight into this front end, which we never want to do on purpose. But that's what would that would happen if I came up short or landed in a hole. I'm saying it's good. You have your leftover.
Yeah.
But you figure my bike never stopped. So if I landed like that in a gully or a G out, that's when I want to bottom out, and I'd feel it, but I don't want it to stay. I want it to still be able to continue, because if I stay at bottom, it becomes a pivot point, and what happens to me? I keep going. Right?
Yeah.
I want to add some compression and see what it feels like. So what you might find, because this is a mullet and the weight bias is so rear, you might want to ride with a couple clicks of compression for your primary riding, pumping, jumping stuff. But I would try it with it in the more open setting for stuff C, because that way it's going to stay in the sag longer. Right?
Yeah.
And you're going to get back into sag faster. I'm going to go one click faster and see if it pushes against me or not. So that's what I like. I like to feel my rebound pressing against me. So as long as my hamstrings stay engaged and my pelvis is stable, the wheel will never leave the ground.
Gotcha.
But if I were to get down or unload myself, that fast of a rebound could potentially push me forward. All right, so let's see now. So if I oscillate on this bike slowly, the bike is very flat. How uniform the bike is. So when I pedal, the bike doesn't move at all, right?
Yep.
But if I hit something, the bike moves and it comes right back. That's at a low velocity. Now if I add a really high velocity to it, it will recover immediately and ready for the next one. When I come back and I land, the bike is nice and soft. So if I want to make lift, the bike will compress a little bit, but there'll be no bounce. And then if I land, it comes right back, so nothing's moving. But yeah, what you could do is you could probably go, you said you're running like 25% sag?
Yep.
And it makes sense you want to be slightly under sagged because it's such
Rear
a
bias.
rear bias bike, yeah. But yeah, if you start bottoming hard, I wouldn't go Nardog. I would just go a single. You could do a half token and take one out with a Nardog, but I would just do a single token. I think 1.5 tokens more, or 2.5 would be too progressive. Also, it steals mid-stroke, so the benefit of having a more linear suspension like this is the bike, it works better. Over volume reducing is band-aiding for something else, normally.